Yeah, what's cracking, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Prison Break Raw. I'm your host, the one and only Big JD. Go ahead, give this channel, subscribe, share at least some messages or comments, hit that thumbs up for the like, notification bell to be informed on all episodes when they drop. And most importantly, if you enjoy this content, please feel free to share it. Sharing is caring. Share it to your family, your friends, your coworkers, anywhere and everywhere in your social media platforms. This is raw and uncut material out there to the millions that don't know we are here. So Tekashi 6ix9ine or Tekashi Snitch 9 or Tekashi Bitch 9 or Tekashi whatever 9 you want to mix and match those words together. Well, he's back up in the mix. He's making a lot of noise. He's all up on Instagram breaking records with over 2 million people viewing his latest rant. And the shit he's talking with the fingers up, flossing $500,000 chains and watches and all this and this and that and doing all these things and laughing and talking mad shit. And breaking down play by play the reasons why he snitched. Apparently, this man's been kidnapped. Apparently, his wife's been sexually involved with somebody else in that organization that had Tekashi under their wing. He's been beaten, he's been humiliated, he's been extorted, and all these other things. And this right here is a classic example of what happens to what we used to call back in the day a studio gangster. So a studio gangster is somebody that gets up on the camera, somebody that's in the studio as a rapper, puts on this image like they're a gangster, but they're really not. This is a label and the accusation that was always pushed towards like NWA. Because really there was only 2 real active gang members or drug dealers or people running and gunning in the streets in the original NWA, and that was, of course, MC Ren and Eazy-E. Ice Cube was never no gangbanger or anything like that. Neither was Yella, neither was Dr. Dre. They were just performers. But when you have somebody that puts on the image and takes this image as they're a gangster for the camera, for the music, they're what's called a studio gangster. And that's exactly what Tekashi Snitch 9 or 6ix9ine is, a studio gangster. So it's kind of like, what did you expect would be my take on it. If I was a part of that organization and I was watching everything that was going on, my first thought in my mind would be to not do anything at all with this clown because he's probably going to tell on me. He's going to fucking throw me under the bus. So the best thing to do would be to avoid him with as far as I could, get what I could off him, but don't get my name caught up in anything. I mean, shit, look what happened to Suge Knight. Same thing, man. He was extorting all his studio gangsters out of Death Row Records. But let's take a look at, let's say, for example, Tekashi Snitch 9, 6ix9ine, whatever, man. Let's think for a minute now, what if he was real? What if he told the feds, fuck you, I ain't snitching on nobody. Snitches get stitches and all this and this and that, and I'm the real one. I'm a real blood. I'm this and that. I'm Tekashi 6ix9ine. I can't damage my reputation by testifying. Go ahead and give me my time. Now, I don't remember how much time he was looking at, so I think somebody once said 30 years. You do 30 years in the feds, there is no getting out early for good behavior, right? You're doing about 85%, 87% of your time. That's the new law. They don't have parole in the feds anymore. They took that shit away a long time ago. Now, with that 87% of your time sentence that you have to do, you also get a 3 years or a 5-year probation tail behind you, and you can't get out of it. Especially now because he's under what's called the new law. People that were under the old new law or the old law, like they can just say, fuck you, I don't want to do probation. They could stay in there and max out their probation inside and get out and have no paper. But not under this new law. You have to do probation. It's a part of the sentence. It's built into the sentence. You're forced to do federal probation. And this I know well, as most of you know. I've been in the California Department of Corrections and Rehumiliation, and I was also in the BOP, the Federal Bureau of Prisons, and did time in both these systems. So I know how both of them work, to a T, to a letter. I know how they work. And here's how things go in the feds. Let's say, for example, that Tekashi Snitch 9 held his mud. What would happen to him? Where would he go? What would become of Tekashi 6ix9ine? Well, tekashi 69 did a lot of his dirt and was involved in everything he was involved in around the area of New York, right? So that's what's called the Northeast region. So the federal prison system is broken down by regions. Most people think, well, if you break a federal law, you could just pick a federal prison anywhere in the country and they'll send you there. Well, they'll take that under consideration, but you won't get sent there. How it normally works in the feds, and it's kind of the same in California. Like if you get busted in Northern California, you might end up in a Northern California prison if there's space. But if there's not, you can go all the way down to Southern California and vice versa, right? Sometimes they try to keep you as close as they can to your family, but they don't always do that. So in the federal system, the way it works is this. If you get busted in a particular region, they'll look at all these different prisons that are in that region. They'll look at all your case factors, everything that's in your PSR, your PSI, and they'll decide which federal prison you're going to go to according to your points, your base offense, all your determining factors, everything that's in that category adjustment, the things that they use in order to classify you. So tekashi 69, so he gets a sentence. Let's say they gave him, 20 years. Let's say they gave him 15 years, low ball figure. Let's say he got 15 years. So what would happen to him? All right, number one, does he have a high school diploma? Does he have a GED or a high school diploma, or is he a high school dropout? That right there, they'll use points against you for that. Boom, that bumps your points up. Where you fail, as long as, like, according to your base offense, goes all the way from 1 all the way down to like 70-something, I believe. The way that they calculate time is like the base offense numbers go down and your categories go all the way across to like 6. I myself was in a category 5. So him, depending on his criminal history, it would put him in whatever category he lands in. And according to the base offense, I don't think he has a real criminal record. So he'd go all the way down to his base offense, admitting responsibility and taking a plea deal, probably would bump him up a couple of points, and then he would slide over to Category 1. And Category 1, it would say how many months between, 15 years to 30 years or something like that would be within those guidelines. It's called the sentencing guidelines is what it's called. So the judge gives him, let's say, the low end of the sentencing guidelines. Now, they could try to request what would be called a downward departure or a safety valve or anything like that. If he didn't cooperate, he didn't testify, more than likely his safety valve would get denied, his downward departure would get denied, and in the same time, an upward departure. If somebody would say, he's high notoriety, he's been involved in all this shit, so the U.S. prosecuting attorney could try to push for an upward departure beyond his sentencing guideline where he fits into that category, but the judge would likely deny that as well. So he'll fall within these guidelines. So he gets 15 years. Now where is he going to go? He may, they'll ask him, well, where do you want to go? And the first thing he's going to do is, can I go to like MDC, New York? Metropolitan Detention Center of New York. Well, they don't really have people that are mainline there outside of those workers in that program. I think it's called the cadre program, and he probably won't get that from the rip. You got to really work your way into that. So that's out. He can't go to MDC, New York, or Brooklyn, or wherever the one is over there. So what's your next place? Where do you want to go? He may say Otisville. USP Otisville in New York, of which is pretty much mostly like a sex offender program these days, from what I understand. And since he held his mud, he stayed solid, whatever it was, but then he had a sex beef on there as well, but I don't know if they really convicted him for that. So he would probably not be able to go to Otisville. What they would do is they would keep him in his region, and the region that he is in is called the Northeast region. I fell out of what's called the South Central region, which is Oklahoma, Texas. My bank robbery was in Oklahoma, so I was in the Southeast region, or the South Central region. Now, if you're in the South Central region, you can land anywhere between the South Central region and the North Central region. Though you can go to any institution in those two spots, and that's usually what happens to somebody that falls out of the North Central or the South Central regions in the BOP. Tekashi 69, on the other hand, He's in the northeastern region, so he can land in any prison system more than likely anywhere in the northeastern region and the mid-Atlantic region. So the mid-Atlantic region has notable prisons like Big Sandy, Hazleton, USP Big Sandy, USP Atlanta, FCI Atlanta, places like that. Up there in New York, you got like FCI Danbury, FCI Berlin. You have USPs like Allenwood in Pennsylvania, USP Canaan. And more than likely, if he didn't have a high school diploma and his youth and his involvement in the case and everything like that, his points would be up. They would probably put him in a USP off the rip. Now, you go into a USP, goddamn. And if you land in USP Canaan, ooh-wee. So he stays solid. So I heard, I've watched some of the other Tekashi 6ix9ine videos out there lately, and people were talking about what would happen to him in the feds. Would the Mexicans get after him? The Chicanos, would they get after him? Here's how this will work. And I've been to the feds, so I know. The first thing Tekashi 6ix9ine would try to do is he's going to try to find out where the New York Bloods are at. And if he didn't tell on anybody and snitch on anybody or anything like that, he's going to go straight to them. You know what I mean? The federal prison system is much different. Much, much different. So he can go to them, and there's probably going to be a lot of them on that yard because it's their region. So let's see, he touches down in Canaan, Pennsylvania out there. Or let's say they move him out of the region, they put him in Big Sandy. Big Sandy, they call that place Big Stab Me. It's rocking and rolling, it's vicious. Same thing as Hazleton. That's where they killed Whitey Bulger. So let's say he lands in Hazleton or he lands in Big Sandy or a place like that. What he's going to do, right off the rip, I promise you this is what he would do. He's going to go look straight for the Bloods, the New York Bloods, because that's who he was rocking under, right? So he's going to try to find them. And I could guarantee you this. They will take him under their wing with open arms. With open arms, they'll take him under their wing. But it won't be a smooth ride for him. I could tell you this right now. So the federal prison system, much different beast, much different place. Will the Mexicans sit up there and jump and try to stab him, try to kill him? Well, now you got to understand what you are dealing with in the feds. We're not talking about California state where you got sureños and norteños and paisas and this and that, bulldogs. Whole different animal in the feds, right? You have cartels that are in there, all kinds of different cartels from all over the place. You have various different Latin kings. You have sureños, you have norteños, you have aztecas, you have the what's called the M&Ms out of San Antonio, of which called the Texas Mexican Mafia. You've got Dongo Blast, you got West Texas Blast, you've got all kinds of shit down in there, pistoleros, all that stuff, right? And then you got ones that are coming out of New Mexico, like Nuevo Sindicato Nuevo, which is the Syndicate of New Mexico. Then you got various different Arizona organizations, the New Mexican Mafia out of Arizona, or the Old Mexican Mafia from Arizona and whatnot. And then you have various other different kind of Mexican gangs all over the country that fit into one way, something or other. So normally they're not going to just have any kind of politics where they're going to kill Tekashi, because Tekashi came into the system rocking this blood thing and all that. But the Bloods will take him under the wing. And if anybody does try to fuck with him, it's going to be on with those cats. So nobody's going to mess with him on that end. But guess what? He's going to think it's all good. He'd be smiling, he'd be laughing, he'd be like, yeah, man, you know what I mean, what's up, blood? None of you can fuck with me, nobody could touch me, and all this and that, you can't do anything. And nobody would even trip on it. It'd be like nothing. But I guarantee you, they will be fucking plunging his asshole out, they'll be smashing his beans. Somebody will take a sweet liking to him. Because a lot of them cats get down like that, especially, when you get out closer to like DC and all that. Fucking notorious booty bandits out in them parts. I'm pretty sure Tekashi 6ix9ine would be swishing his ass around in the cell with his boxers all pulled up in his ass and his shirt tied into a knot. And at the same time, he would be financing everything that is going on within that car. That car would all of a sudden be the richest car on that compound because they have a celebrity in their ranks. And it just works like that, man. That's how it works in the feds. So that's what would happen to him if he hit a mainline. They wouldn't try to kill him. They would suck him dry, no pun intended, because he'd be sucking people dry, man. He'd be sucking people dry. They'd be sucking his money dry. And then once he was useless, who knows what would happen to him at that point. Let's say 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road, he would probably end up becoming useless. He would probably drop points or move down a level and end up on an FCI somewhere, but he would never end up on a minimum facility. They'd make an example out of him because he refused to cooperate, and they don't like that in the feds. The feds don't like to be told no. So when they're told no, they stick it to you, man. When they stick it to you, they stick it to you. So in an alternate reality, in an alternate world, this is what would happen to Tekashi 6ix9ine if he didn't rat. So he would still be in prison right now. We wouldn't be watching him on Instagram. He'd be irrelevant. He'd be bent over a bunk somewhere with a cock stuck fucking way up in his ass. And he would be financing everything that's going on in that car. Pure and simple. Nobody would kill him. I don't see that happening. I see them using him for everything that he's got until he has nothing left, and they'd probably just discard him after that. Or he would probably check in at some point in time. But if you check in, they just bounce you all over the place. And he's always going to have that target on his back. But the feds don't give a fuck because he didn't give them nothing. So there's no S&Y system in the feds. So they'll just bounce him from region to region to region to region. He can end up in the western region and end up over there in Victorville. Ooh-wee, if that happens. He can end up going to bloody Beaumont, Texas. USP Beaumont. He can end up at USP Florence. He can end up in USP Tucson. He could end up, you name it. The sky's the limit. He could be there. And if that happens, then he ends up what? Say Lompoc or something like that. He's always going to have that target on his back. Now, that's where things would change for him. So now here's the Tekashi 6ix9ine, the Mexican dude Tekashi 6ix9ine, who just got 86'd out of the Bloods. He checked in. He locked it up. He left the compound. Now they drop his ass in USP Victorville. Now, this is where he would probably end up getting killed. So he'd probably have to check in from there, and it would just be constant. He'd be on diesel therapy, moving from one region to the next for years and years and years until he finally settled someplace where nobody was doing nothing to him. Or he would probably just finally have to accept the fact that he's always going to be somebody's bitch and he's never going to be nothing, and his whole life is just gone. And at that point in time, in that moment, he would probably get the thought in his mind like, damn, man, I wish I would have snitched on everybody. But yeah, that's what would happen, man, if in an alternate reality, in a bizarro land world where Tekashi 6ix9ine was a real one and held his mud. But at the end of it all and all the abuse that he would go through, I know that at some point in time he'd be like, I should have fucking testified against him. But nonetheless, he did. He testified. He didn't have to go through all that. He stayed in witness protection program. He got out, all that. So all of it's irrelevant. But that's exactly what he would be in store for in the BOP. And I hope you've enjoyed this little what would happen to him type of a video. What if? I'll do some more in the future of some what ifs. If you, of course, enjoy this one right here. Prison Break Raw, uncut, uncensored, no holds barred, non-sugarcoat, non-politically correct, all up in your face, slapping you with that dick of reality, and I'm out.